It is time for us being those weekend golf guys. I am John Ashton. He is Jeff Smith, Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher, an all-around good guy, and he too has been chomping at the bit. Now he has been taking some trips to Florida. He's been taking some trips to South Carolina. He has played some outdoor golf. Some of us have been doing it all year long out in the Southwest and the Southeast. However, the majority of us are saying it's March, temperatures like in the high 50s, low 60s, maybe hitting the 70s. It's time. Before we talk about playing golf outside, which is different than playing golf inside, and we all know
it is.
I just want to mention that today, the 6th of March, is the last day for voting in the Sports Podcast Awards. We are one of 8 finalists. You need to go.
Vote often today. Matter of fact, do it like every 10 minutes. You can go vote.
You can do that.
Just take an hour or 10 hours to go vote every hour, 10 minutes every time. But just do it.
It's a Sunday. You're relaxing. Just what better thing do you have to do but to make us number one?
Right. You can just go to the one place, stop scrolling, and just start clicking. Right? Instead of just swiping, right? Just go click. We like the sound of clicks for us.
Just do a search, Sports Podcast Awards. It'll take you right there. You do have to register on the site, but they're not going to harass you for anything except for voting again next year. That's all they're going to do.
And then you'd vote for us again.
Exactly. So
because John's paying good money for votes. Pesos, yen, I don't know what it is. Maybe he's paying in crypto or something. I don't know.
I can afford rubles, is what I'm using.
Afford rubles right now?
Rubles. Yeah. So, but yeah, Sports Podcast Awards. Again, it's an honor just to be among 8 of the top finalists. But that's not good enough for us because we both are obnoxious overachievers.
Well, you are, I guess.
Okay, Mr. Top 100. Going for Mr. Top 10.
Hey, look. People in front of me.
We're number one.
Chased down yet.
Hey, we're coming right back. It's got a great show coming up. Stick with us. All right, we are back. And thanks for voting. We know you did it during the break. And that could be it. We've got about 3 more breaks coming up. Why don't you just go vote during the breaks? That would be.
Or, you can vote and listen at the same time.
You can because.
Right. You don't have to click off the show. I mean, come on. We all got internet.
Yeah. That's it. Just open
we got phones that work. They get, you can listen to us yammer on about golf and go click on us and say, hey, these guys are better than the other guys.
So let's yammer on about golf. I have noticed one thing during the few outdoor rounds I have had so far this season. Now I have been playing on some of your machines. Why did the word just escape me? Simulator.
The simulator machine?
I've been playing on some of your simulators. And then you get outdoors and suddenly the area you have to hit your ball to has expanded tremendously. It's like after doing the simulator thing, it's like, wow, I've got all this room here.
It's interesting. I notice that when people have that effect, right? And I notice it more indoors when they have a driver in their hand, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like people just can't seem to get it right. Good players, consistent players, and you put them inside in front of a simulator, and whatever launch monitor is the right one, and then whichever one gives you the most accurate stuff, right? But they don't feel the same. Spatially, they're different. You just mentioned it.
Yeah.
Essentially, they feel caged and closed, and they can't quite get a handle on it because, when we're standing out there over a ball, out in the fairway or even in the rough or behind a tree or whatever, we're looking around. We got all around. We've got air, space, the sky. We've got all this expansiveness, and then that's the environment we play in. And you take that away, and it just feels weird. But I notice the difference far more with drivers than I do with irons and hybrids.
Don't you think it would follow though that if you spend some time indoors with a driver and a simulator and you get good at it, that the expansion of the field of vision would make it so that you would actually improve, because you can still narrow your focus. Even though you've got the larger field in front of you, you can still narrow your focus to make it feel like when you're in front of the simulator, couldn't you?
You know, that's a good point. I don't know if it has any validity. I've not really ever studied it, is what I'm saying.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I'm not saying that, that's wrong or anything. I'm just saying I think it's a valid point. I'm just not sure if I've ever paid attention to it in that way, if that forced focus, so to speak, of I got to hit into a simulator and I got to rip it into this visually smaller space inside of this cage that I have to hit in, actually helps your alignment and focus outdoors when you have all this room to take in, to visually to take in. I don't know if it does, but I do know that every time I walk inside in the simulator here behind me in the golf studio, and girls are having trouble hitting drivers, and I walk right outside the door and we stool it up outside and we rip it down the 9th or 18th fairway here at Timbergate, they seem to have an easier time of alignment and target. And I don't know if it's just because that's what we get used to when we play, or if it's some other factor that I don't understand. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
An interesting study by somebody, but not by me.
Yeah.
I got too many things to do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, but I really don't care that much.
I don't care enough to stop teaching to go study that. Hey, let's go do this experiment. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of things people don't have time for, I hear out of so many players that they talk about this. You've heard this before too. Yeah, I'll wait till you put your coffee down, because you're gonna wear it if I say this now.
Okay.
The people who say I saved it at the bottom, they got something feeling like they're going online, right? offline up the top, and halfway down they go, oh yeah, but I saved it at the bottom. There's an example of, no, you didn't. You don't have time for that. That thing's a quarter of a second on the way down, and people are going, I felt this going on in my downswing, and then I saved it at the bottom. That falls directly under the heading of nobody's got time for that.
Yeah, as in the subheading, you got lucky.
Yeah, exactly. It's just funny, because when somebody says to me that they did something conscious halfway through or most of the way through a downswing, because we know it's a quarter of a second from top to ball, and then the first half of that is a lot slower than the second half of that. Like, yeah, sure you did. Right? Look, Tiger Woods may be able to do it. I'm not going to doubt that guy can do it. Come on. The average Joe who plays once a week, or twice a week, and he says, I saved it at the bottom. I don't think you got time for that, brother.
No.
I don't think so.
There's something y'all got to do that will prove how little time you have, and it's an associated game. It's something similar. It's baseball. Okay, here in Louisville, Kentucky, Louisville Sluggers are made, hence the name Louisville Sluggers. Okay, and they have a museum, and in this museum they have a display that is a pitcher's mound. What is it, 60 feet 6 inches away, and a home plate, and you get to stand at home plate and watch a video of a Major League Baseball pitcher throwing a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
I swear You hear that ball hit the catcher's mitt behind you before you see the pitcher finish his motion.
Do they give
Well,
you a button to hit to swing the bat to figure out whether you have the timing of that or not?
well,
The
they have a
reaction
bat in
time?
your hand. They have a bat in your hand. They'll tell you if you hit it or not. But I mean, you haven't even swung yet, and you hear the poop of the ball hitting the mitt behind you. You're going, wait a minute. I mean,
That's
it goes back to
embarrassing.
Ted Williams' famous quote. I think it was Ted Williams, anyhow. The umpire, the umpire didn't see the ball, and he said, "What do you think, Ted?" And he said, "I don't know, man. It sounded low to me."
Sounded low. Good.
But I mean,
But
things
you're
go
right. Things
so
happen
fast.
so fast.
You don't have time to react. You don't have time to consciously make a decision like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's all these things. I mean, I ask people all the time, I say, how many things do you think you could really do in a quarter of a second downswing? I don't know of anything that I can do in a quarter of a second except maybe blink my eyes.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if blinking my eyes is a quarter of a second, but I think that's about the only thing that I could do in a
Right.
quarter of a second is blink. I don't know of anything else.
No.
Could you imagine that? And people don't. I think that your example there of the sound of that ball being hit, or I mean in the catcher's mitt, so fast that could be something. I'd love to find out how I could get that little sound and that little clip, because to play that for some of my students, to make them realize how little this is, how little time this really is.
Short a period of time.
So they couldn't possibly imagine this. I saved it at the bottom thing.
Yeah.
Quarter of a second.
We will discuss what it is they're actually doing, and maybe what it is that they're misinterpreting. We will come back and do that in a little bit. But again, just to reiterate, today's the last day for voting. If you're listening to us live, please go to sportspodcastawards.com and vote for those weekend golf guys. That would be us. We would appreciate it immensely. Be right back.
I can do that in a quarter of a second.
And we are back. Thanks again for taking a little break during the break. Sports at podcastawards.com. Appreciate your assistance. We want to be number one. You want us to be number one, and you want to be part of it, right? Okay, good. Okay, so when the guy says I saved it at the bottom, what is it? Because he's obviously thinking that he did something wrong on the way down.
Yeah.
But again, we've established that he's moving too damn fast to actually know what it is or to fix what it is. So what do you think is actually happening?
I think that what's actually happening is that certain things happen in a firing order that our brain makes us do, right? We set a grip in a position in motion by changing an angle, and then we start moving, and then things move in those angles. Our body is generating force all the time, and it comes out in those angles. So if I set my right hand, say, more over, and I set some force in motion to move my arm, the right hand hinges, the wrist hinges, and it hinges upward and outward if my hand is more over, right?
Mm-hmm.
If my hand is more under, it hinges more downward and inward. But yet I just triggered the same thing. My brain, all those chemical / electrical things, those that generate the force that moves our body, right?
Right.
Is the motor pattern. This fires before that. That's not conscious. That's not something that you go, hey, John, I want you to adjust the bill of your cap so that it's actually centered in your head. So you would twist it a little bit more on center, and you would consciously do that because you were thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that happens at all in a golf swing from a conscious level. So all these people that think that they're doing these things consciously I think they're a little sideways on that. I
Well,
think that there's this thing that happens in our body,
mhm.
right? It's kind of been proven biomechanically, but it's the brain triggering all those things in our body that fire our muscles to move in a certain pattern. But the angles that the bones and joints are set to are the direction changers. And
Yeah.
so if we learn about those angles and then we learn about how to just trigger the stuff to go, push the green button kind of a thing, I think these things are all set in motion.
Wouldn't this be what people, for lack of a better term, refer to as muscle memory?
Yeah, that's a definite lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Because we all know that muscles don't have any memory.
Right, but that is what you're describing, is the fact that the body moves in certain ways and can
Right.
do it without conscious thought about doing it.
Right, and what it is the motor pattern is established from, there are things, right? There's these neurons firing in our head,
Mhm.
and then they go through our nervous system, electrical pulses kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
And every time it goes through those things, it's like paving a highway. It makes it easier and easier and easier to use those roads, right?
Okay.
So they call that a myelin layer over the nerves, right? I don't want to get into the scientific things, but it's essentially works like this. The more you do a thing in a certain way, the more you're training yourself to do things in that way.
Right.
So this is why they call it muscle memory,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's really not a better short term to use to say that.
Without getting into the weeds and the science. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, right. Let's just say that it's like paving a road. And it makes it easier and easier and easier to drive down that road.
Let me throw another, kind of a monkey wrench into the deal here. I have heard scientific type people tell me that specifically quarterbacks, they do a whole lot of things in 1.5 to 3 seconds that most people go, how can you do all that in that little amount of time? And one of the things, one of the hypotheses, is that the flow of adrenaline in athletes can kind of slow down time.
That's a pretty crazy thing how they do that, right?
A shorter period of time. I mean, I played football just a couple times in high school, and I intercepted a pass in a game once, and I ran it back a couple of yards and was tackled. I was hit at my knees and my shoulders simultaneously, and I swear it took me 10 seconds to hit the ground. It was like, am I ever going to hit? Is this ever going to end? And all I kept saying to myself in my head was, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball. But it took a long time. But then the flip side of that, I've talked to NFL quarterbacks on our sister podcast, The Approach Shot, who do agree, yes, whether it be adrenaline or whatever, or just being used to it, they can do a lot of things. They can do all those checkdowns, who's open, who's not, in a very short period of time. But then I also talked to a couple of Major League Baseball players.
Yeah.
And one of them that I can remember is Steve Lyons, who's the guy who pulled his pants down on first base after sliding into first base one time because he got all kinds of dirt in his pants and he forgot where he was. So,
He forgot where he was?
Crazy man.
I'm just in a Major League Baseball stadium full of 30,000 people watching me drop my trousers.
He said he got so few hits, it just didn't dawn on him. But I asked him, I said, does that happen? Does a 95-mile-an-hour fastball look slower than that and give you time to react? And he was like, no. He said, that thing just comes in. I'm lucky to see it. So, there are different things, but I don't know. Do you think a golfer might have that adrenaline time expansion kind of deal?
Yeah, so I
going
think
on?
you're somewhat describing what a lot of people call the zone, right?
Yeah.
Where
Well, okay. Yeah.
where the athlete is essentially in some other state where they say everything slows down
Mm-hmm.
and they have this ultimate sense of focus. And I've achieved that a few times in different sports. One in downhill skiing.
Okay.
I call it a heightened state of awareness for sure.
Okay.
I've done it in downhill skiing. I've had lots of golf swings and lots of rounds of golf where I was at that heightened state of awareness and I was somewhat unaware of time.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden round was over and it was 3+ hours later.
Right.
And didn't even think about it. I was just kind of in and out of that time world that we live in, right? That we know what time it is. We know how much time has passed, just general feeling.
Right.
I've actually had it more often in my life while teaching golf.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Where something's going on and I'm so into what's going on that all of a sudden the time has gotten by me. And all of a sudden, bang, here comes my next student in the door. And I'm thinking, wow, how'd that happen?
Hence the expression, time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think that these things are all somehow related in our heads, not our conscious mind, but inside of our head, inside of our body, of saying, okay, what's taking over the situation here? Subconscious, focus. So here we are talking about some strange things, but they do all apply to golf. Mm-hmm. It's how do we get that kind of focus? How do we do that? And how do we get ourselves into that state? That's a tough question. Because there's a lot of people out there, a lot of sports psychologists in the world talking about that flow state, talking about that get in the zone, talking about getting out of your own way. A lot of ways to say it. But there's so many people out there with so much chaos going on inside their head, me being one of those people, that it's hard to sift through that to immerse yourself into that moment. But could you imagine the ability to do that as an NFL quarterback, on how they have to, on every single snap, they come out of the huddle and they've got to be in that heightened state of awareness and read the defense and understand what's going on. That ball snaps and their brain is working so fast.
Yeah.
How do they go through those progressions and checkdowns, and where do they know where to get rid of the ball? And in 1.3 seconds, that ball's out of their hand.
Yeah.
Or they're flat on their back or running around running for their lives because those big defensive linemen, linebackers, and safeties and free ends are coming at them.
310-pound, 6'9" guy bearing down at you at 20 miles an hour. That's going to hurt.
You got that right. So it's amazing to me how a lot of these successful people get that done in that amount of time. Think, who was one of the first ones that you were aware of as an NFL quarterback? Here we are, just spectators. Who was the guy in, let's call it, somewhat recent history that got rid of the ball faster than everybody else and nobody could get a glove on this guy? And every game the guy played, he was never had any dirt on his jersey. Dan Marino.
Well, okay. Mr. Marino.
That ball was out. That ball was out. It was gone. He knew where he was going with that, right? And then you see other quarterbacks that are noted for getting rid of the ball, not holding on to it, right? Peyton Manning, when he got a little older, not when he was younger.
Yeah.
Right? When he was a little older, he got rid of it fast. Tom Brady got rid of it really fast.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed. Yeah.
That's why their careers could be longer.
So how can we, and let's talk about this when we come back, how can we play golf like Dan Marino plays football? How can we get in that zone? Some ideas when we come right back. We are This Weekend Golf Guys. Go vote! And thanks again for doing a little voting during the break there. We appreciate it. It's at sportspodcastawards.com. You've got all day. If you're in your car or something right now and you can't actually get to it, we don't want you to, pull over or anything like that. No.
Sure we do. Look, there's rest stops every place.
Okay.
There's a restaurant on the side of the road. You'd like to get some fries and a burger.
Get a cup of coffee on us while you're there. No problem.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about the zone. We're talking about time. We're talking about things you do and do not have time for, changes, adjustments, and stuff during a golf swing. Impossible. But I would think that, and here we raise the specter of that nasty P word, which is going to be spoken more and more often as now more and more of us get outside and actually play golf.
Right.
But practice is probably the paramount necessity to finding the zone at any time.
It's interesting that you're the one that actually brought that up. I'll point that out on this broadcast, that you are the ones that are pointing out and being an advocate of practice.
I've changed.
I don't have to do it all by myself on this particular version of the show.
That's right.
Yeah. But let's get into that, right? The portion of practice that helps us get into the zone. Now let's think about this for just a second. All right, John, you're a traditional non-practicer.
Mm-hmm.
You've only got so much time for golf. And
don't
by
got time
God,
for
you
that.
want it to be
Right.
on the golf course, right?
Yep.
I got it. But yet, when you were only that guy, that was also your practice time, and you were trying to work on things while you were on the golf course.
Yes.
And you know what that did to your scores and your happiness, because you couldn't focus on just the simple performance of it, because you had all these questions in your head that you could have alleviated by doing some practice off the golf course to work on your skills, so that you knew that they were there, and you effectively trust the fact that you can get a club on the ball with the face pointed where you want to.
Yes.
Right. So the people who do a lot of that have a lot of confidence in the fact that that's just going to happen. And the best part about that is the predictability that they now understand that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So golfers who do practice have less on their mind while they're on the golf course, and have a far easier time of flipping the switch mentally. Boom, club's in my hand. Let's go decide on my target, and let's just set up and do my other thing, is my routine.
Mm-hmm.
Routines greatly help us get into that moment. The process is not really that relevant. I don't encourage people to do one specific thing, two specific things, three specific things, or four specific things every time they get into a routine. I do tell them this, though: their routine, the end result of their routine, needs to mentally prepare them to hit the shot, meaning that they're not consciously thinking about what's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're physically prepared to hit their shot, and their confidence level is high. Now, I know that in your non-practicing era of golf,
Mm-hmm.
that never happened for you. It was a rare thing.
It was.
Right. But now that you're actually willing to go practice, you're starting to see some things, like a lot of the players that I work with see, is that they show up and it's time to hit the shot, and the club is now in hand, and they go through their routine. And their routine takes about the same amount of time, and they have this flow. It takes the same amount of time. It's doing the same repetitive thing. And when they're standing over the golf ball, they're focused on their target. They're confident in the shot. And all the physical things are there, and the mental things are there, and they're focused in because they've done it so many times. They know the outcome.
And let me just make sure I understand the point you were making about routine. is there aren't any specific things you need to do for a routine. You just need whatever works for you. You need to do it the same way each time.
Right. The one I don't know that you would call a constant that I know helps everybody is deep breaths.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's
so
your basic
I'll be a
relaxation
proponent
technique.
of that. But honestly, I don't really care if your routine includes a somersault.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care.
Just as
I
long as
care
you
that
do
it takes the same
stage.
amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I care that it does it in the same order. I care that you get yourself into a place where you know what's about to happen.
Yep.
And I care that you do that all the time. And so a lot of the really good tournament players that I work with, one of the big things that we do is say, let's go through the routine. Let's get ourselves set up. Now,
Mm-hmm.
before you start to think, and anybody out there in radio land starts to think that I'm taking too much time and thus contributing to slow play, as opposed to the guy who just says, just get up there and hit it. That would have been you a while ago. I set time limits on their routine, and I get them to start their routine just before it's their turn to play.
Mm-hmm.
So let's give an example of on the golf course, John and Jeff go out to play. John's driving the cart. He goes over to the rough, finds his golf ball after a few minutes, rumbles around a little bit, decides what club he's going to hit, goes over to his bag, pulls it out, puts it in his hand, and slashes away at it without really much prep.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, Jeff's already at his golf ball because he got out of the golf cart.
Right.
Already made note of the general distance, has already taken 3 clubs out of his bag. The one that could be short, the one that could be the right club, and the one that could be long. And he goes over to his nice lie in the fairway. And did you notice I painted that picture very nicely for you?
Yeah. But he's swearing because he's in a divot.
Right. Well, he's going to roll that out of a divot in the fairway. But you see, he's already generally prepared.
Yeah.
And then when John's over there, cursing and screaming about the fact that he just fatted it into the lake, Jeff is already ignoring John on that and is already focused in on his shot. He's decided on his club, and then he puts it into play. He says, okay, other 2 clubs are on the ground now. I've got this one, and bam, my routine starts. And then rolls up to his golf ball after making his routine, puts the strike on it, and that took about 15 to 20 seconds.
Right.
That's really all it took.
Yeah.
So understanding that's pretty important. So I want to make sure that you know that I'm not being a proponent of going slowly. I'm being a proponent of being prepared for the shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. Because if we're going slowly, we're not really helping things. We got to go at a routine pace. I have a limit that I set on all the players that I work with. 20 seconds. From the time the club hits your hand until the ball is in the air. Nobody thinks 20 seconds is too long.
No.
For that to happen.
No.
I'm a proponent of being prepared. Mm-hmm. Because then there's a calm. So I know that the people who do this really well, generally speaking, are people who walk to their ball.
Yeah. See,
even if they take a cart, they walk to their ball from the cart.
Yeah, I was going to say the operative consideration in that whole scenario was the fact that John parked the cart, got out, and so did Jeff. Jeff got out, picked 3 clubs out of his bag, and walked to his ball. Jeff did not sit in the cart waiting for John to finish his shot and then waiting for John to put the club back, get in the cart, and drive to Jeff's ball. That is what takes up all the time.
Yeah, essentially, Jeff took all of the wasted time out of play.
Mm-hmm.
and was already in the mode of I'm over near my ball, right?
Yep.
I'm rolling through my routine. Jeff's a faster player, but yet he's more prepared to play when it's his turn. This is important because
It is.
see, then there's no rush. There's nobody looking at the group behind, and you're not rushing your shot. Look, John, if you and I are playing golf together and that's the scenario that happens, I might be the second to play because you've got your 5-iron in your hand, hacking it out of the rough and fattening it into the water. You're taking extra shots. I'm standing there in the pitching wedge in the fairway, and I may have played second, but I was not rushing.
No.
Because I was prepared, even if there's a group on the tee behind us. I'm not looking back at them. I'm taking less time, but I'm more prepared.
Yeah. It's important to be prepared. And the one guy that you don't want to be that guy who thinks the preparation is in practice swings and takes 7 or 8 of them or 10 or 12 of them. That's the guy you look at and go, oh, just hit it.
Yeah, I watch people do that, and I wonder what's going on in their head. Is it conscious? Yeah. Are they thinking about that?
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how many people will stand there and do an on-course rehearsal of something, and they're thinking, okay, that wasn't a good practice swing. I need to stop and make a good practice swing, and I'm not going to hit my ball until I'm good and ready. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. Send this guy to the practice range.
Yeah, come back next week sometime. Again, the pre-shot routine is, to reiterate, does not have to be anything specific, but must be the same exclusive to you. It must be what you need to do to get ready to hit that ball and feel confident in it.
Yeah.
And it should not take more than 20 seconds.
Right. So I have all of my players that I work with create their own, and I give them a few rules. 20 seconds max from club in hand to ball in the air. They do the same thing each and every time, and that it accomplishes those 3 goals. Mentally prepared to hit the shot and confident, right? There's 2. And physically prepared to hit the shot. There's the 3rd. Just do it.
That's, and having the benefit of your tutelage about this, I'll tell you what mine consists of is I take the club, stand behind the ball and aim, find a space in front of the ball where I can look without having to keep looking at the flag or wherever it is I'm aiming.
Yep.
Address the ball, make sure the ball's in the right position according to my body. Make sure that the club head is square. Align it. Take a practice. Well, I've taken a practice swing before. I forgot that, but that's the first thing I do. Just make sure you feel comfortable swinging the club. Maybe once or twice, just casually. Then I aim, get the ball position, make sure the club head is in the right position, address the ball, and hit it. And knowing that my swing is okay, my aim is right, and my club head is right, the confidence level is very high.
It's amazing what happens when you get that routine. And for guys like you, John, I'm glad that you're figuring out which end of the club to hold. That's great.
Go vote. We'll be right back. All right, we've got a few moments yet together. I hope that you've taken this to heart. Time. How much time does it take? Well, it takes too much time to make an adjustment mid-swing for you to make an adjustment mid-swing. So you got to practice prior so you don't have to make those adjustments while you're doing it. And a pre-shot routine is paramount of importance, but also don't take too long. 20 seconds max.
There's a way to go out and do that, and it's practicing a practice routine, right? I just said practice twice in the same sentence. I know that just kills you.
And it really wasn't redundant.
Practice a practice routine. You're like, wait a minute, what did you just say? Mr. Iverson? I just said it twice in one sentence, and it wasn't even a run-on.
You need that stinking practice. You do. Yes, indeed, you do. You know what else you can do in about 20 seconds, man? You can
What?
go to Sports Podcast Awards and vote.
Ooh.
Yes, you can. Because
As long as they vote for us, they can do it.
Yeah. It takes longer than that to vote for anybody else, but for us, you can do it in less than 20
It takes
seconds.
all day long to cast a vote for someone else. You don't have that kind of time. Just
You
do
don't
it
get that
quickly.
kind of time.
Vote for us.
That's right. SportsPodcastAwards.com. We are one of 8 finalists. You can find us there. It's the cute little golf ball talking into the microphone. That's us. That's our logo. So you can also, after you vote, you can catch us anytime. You may miss us on the radio. You can catch us online. Podcast version is available at thoseweekendgolfguys.com and at every other podcast location. So you've got one on your phone, just go download us. Subscribe would be nice. We also have some stuff up on YouTube. weekendgolfguys.tube, or is it golfguys.tube? Try them
I
both.
think
I'm not sure which one we did.
I think it's weekendgolfguys.tube.
I think it is weekendgolfguys.tube. Yeah, you'd think I'd write that stuff down.
I don't know. You commit it to memory or something, right? Put it like a sticker on your PC so you could see it.
Yeah, there's some videos from us, Jeff and I. Also, some videos from our sister podcast, The Approach Shot, with interviews from some more stellar. Mitch Lawrence, the actor from Dawson's Creek, and all that. That's up there now.
It's an interesting podcast, but you got to make a distinguishing thing here. This is the good-looking sister podcast, and the other one is
yeah,
quite so much.
You got it right. So we appreciate it, and now let's all rejoice, because most of us are going to be able to get out now with the weather changing. It's springtime. It is already meteorological spring. Whatever that means, but AccuWeather told me that. So
well, it just means that they were wrong on February 2nd.
And go play some golf.